I'm Larry Williamson, CEO of Agriculture for Life. We're on our summer farm road trip. Our stop today is 5th Gen Gardens. We're visiting with Kristen, and we are excited to be learning more about your gardens, your garlic, all the great things you're doing here. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we're really, I'm smelling the garlic. I'm super excited to ask you all about it, but we'll start at the very beginning. 5th Gen Gardens. Dive in and tell us a little bit about the name. I'm assuming there's some generational thought in there.
There is, yes.
Right.
Where do I start here?
Yeah.
So, from the name, you can probably tell I'm the 5th generation on our farm. We've all done something a little bit different. There's been grain and cattle, different livestock, but when I came back to the farm 5 years ago now, I wanted to start a market garden and just, create a connection with food and to share that connection with people locally and to just make it a little bit more accessible. So that was kind of how it all started.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's definitely changed a lot. And now we're doing some large-scale garlic.
Yes. Yeah. So the land that we're on, was this great-grandpa or great-great-grandpa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've just passed our century mark a couple years ago.
Wow.
Which is really neat. And
Yeah.
it's something I feel like we're so fortunate to have is we have all this knowledge of the history of our land. And it's something, because we're so many generations have been here, every little part of our land tells a story and we know it, which is really advantageous to how you grow and how you work the land, but also just, in building it and building a future too. So my own little garden plot has been, when my grandfather was young, he can remember there being haystacks for the pigs. So my northeast corner is very, very good soil because of that.
Yeah.
When he farmed, there's gravel on the west side of my garden because that was where his grain bins were. And back then they didn't have concrete floors, they just laid gravel. So I pick rocks every spring and thank him for that.
Yes.
And then on my north side of my garden is where our cattle feeder was when I was young. And it was a feedlot. So again, it's very fertile soil there. And then it was cropland, and 6 years ago we turned it into a garden.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love how you know every inch of your garden and the history behind that. So you moved back. So that means at some point you had left the farm to pursue another career.
Yes.
But there was something tugging at you back at the farm that brought you back? What?
Actually, no. It was very much a unexpected comeback, we'll say. I left when I was 18. I went to school in Edmonton, and I worked as an X-ray tech in emergency at the U of A hospital for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So long story short is that after a decade of that, I saw more than enough trauma than I ever want to see again.
Yeah.
And I needed a change, and I wasn't somebody that could handle that anymore. I needed to change my career and what I was doing. And coincidentally, that same year, my dad needed some help in harvest because we're also grain farmers. And it all just kind of clicked. I was awful. I made more work than I helped, but it was the point of being out here and finding this reconnection with it and just really, it was kind of like a safe space, and it was just it was just what I needed.
Yeah.
And then from there, I had my first garden that year that was just for personal use, and I was, I started dreaming up like, man, I wish this could be my job. I wish I could do this all the time. I don't want to have to go back to my current job. And one thing after another, the next year I did both and worked full time and would be out here during the mornings and trying to do it all. And then after that first summer, it was very obvious that I needed to make a change. Yeah. And so in 2018, I quit my job and went headfirst into farming. And it was honestly, I never looked back. It's been incredible. And it's something I'm just so lucky to have this opportunity to do this. But it's, I enjoyed my job before, but it was like a shell, right? Like I can't even describe how much I love what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, we can tell as we're touring and visiting with you, the passion is bubbling over. And
it can be a bit much sometimes. I'm sure.
it's fantastic. It's as part of the storytelling that we're doing with our farm tour is
Yeah.
getting to meet exciting producers that are growing our food. And when you're as excited about it, I'm super excited about it.
That's good.
Because it's like, wow, I know Kristen's been out and she's been working hard to grow this for me, and the blood, sweat, and tears, because I'm sure there's a little bit of all of that. To bring that to my table. So no, that's super exciting. So you've got your garden. And so tell us a little bit about what you're growing within the garden, and you have it set up, I think part of it is a CSA.
That's right, yeah. So the majority of my produce goes towards a CSA and weekly boxes. And this year I'm actually doing a 10-week season.
Okay.
So I shortened it up a little bit because we also tried to combine, and we're harvesting garlic, and we're trying to do it all at once.
Yeah,
and 12 weeks is a bit much for me. So that's where the majority of my products go. And it's a big variety. I've got corn and carrots and beets. And essentially when I make my planting list, it's stuff that I really enjoy eating.
Nice.
So on that note, you'll never find cauliflower in my garden because I hate it.
There you go.
but it's all stuff that I think tastes good, and it's, nutritious, and it's something that every house, every table can benefit from.
Yeah.
And that's where the thought kind of goes into it. And then just in recent years, I've started working with a few local restaurants as well. So it's been a really exciting and fun side to the business that I never was expecting to get into. But it's so neat to be able to see the next step of where my products go, because with the CSA, I drop them off and everybody says thank you, and they'll tell me what they enjoyed and stuff, but that's kind of the end of the journey. Whereas to see it in print on a menu or actually on a table, and it just goes that one step further, and it's been really neat.
That would be a fun experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, to go to the restaurant and then order your product.
Yeah. And I love eating. I love food. So this is just that one further part of it, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. So you're carving a niche for yourself, maybe the garlic whisperer, but we're surrounded by your garlic well. So how did you get into garlic? Did you grow right at the start, or is this something that you've been experimenting with?
We've we'll say I've grown into it. I originally started with about 100 bulbs in my garden a few years ago, and it was hopes to use with my CSA. So it was a small crop, and I was kind of trialing it. Up until that point, didn't think you could grow it here because of our harsh winters.
I think most people think you can't grow garlic.
I think that's correct. And it's very wrong, actually.
Yes.
We can grow garlic in Alberta.
Yes, I know. It's fascinating.
But so it was just an experiment that year. And I planted the cloves in the fall and thought for sure they're not going to live, and kind of walked away and whatever. And they did so well. And it was such a difference in flavor, and it was so enjoyable, and it was very opposite to everything else that grows, because you plant it in the fall and you harvest it in the summer, but it's before we're harvesting any of our grain, any of our my big crops in the garden. And
so it's a good time. It's good timing for you as part of your sort of the process as the workflow would go.
Exactly. Yeah. And so from that first year, then I multiplied it to about 1,000 bulbs and really enjoyed it. And around that same time, we've started talking about, how I can make my income a little bit more year-round. Because I still work casually off-farm at the hospital in the winter. And I would really like to be able to make the shift towards being fully supported from farm. And the garden, as much as I love it, is very seasonal.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a 6-month intensive, and then the winters are very quiet and very lovely. But
yes, you get a break. You get to plan what you're seeding and do all that.
But unfortunately, the income gets a break as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the thought started. And we talked about potentially me having a bigger role in our grain farm, and quite honestly, I enjoy it, and I love working with my parents out there and my grandpa and everybody else, but I'm not meant to be a grain farmer. It's something that I enjoy being a part of, but it is so overwhelming, and I'm very mechanically challenged, and it's not for me. So I was trying to find something else that worked, and we had this garlic that was growing really well. There's a wonderful market for it in Alberta and a need for it, and we just kind of went from there. And so my dad and I have teamed up on this, and we went from 1,000 bulbs to 20,000.
Ooh.
This year we harvested 50,000, and I believe the plan is to still go bigger.
Oh my gosh. Look out, you need more space.
Yes, right? We're going to take over this whole machine shed.
Yeah, that's amazing. So now tell us about, you harvest the garlic, and then this amazing wall behind us, your garlic wall. What's happening here?
So garlic needs to hang. It needs to dry, and it cures as it's doing that. So typically, we let it hang for 3 to 4 weeks. It depends on how much humidity is in the air. Last year, it hung for a lot longer because it was so wet. But the point is that as it hangs to dry, this locks in the flavors. It gives that really intense garlic flavor.
Right.
But it also increases your storage capabilities.
Okay.
So all of the leaves, each leaf is one layer of paper when you peel a bulb.
We got one here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So when they first come out of the ground, they're wet. They're like an onion. Like they don't peel away at all. So they need to dry to the point where they can peel. And then it also seals the bulb, which lets it last longer throughout the winter. And here in Alberta, we don't have the luxury of having a second garlic crop. We get one shot at this, and that's it. And we have to make it last as long as possible. So here on our farm, we don't use any growth inhibitors or any sprays or anything like that. So it all has to be natural storage and optimal conditions for that. So that's where drying it properly comes into play. And last year we had fresh garlic up until the end of March.
Wow.
So we're trying to really push that because, there's a gap in this cycle of garlic, we'll say, right? There is a gap between April to August when you start harvesting again. In July, we have garlic scapes, which kind of helps fill that void. But there's still a few months where garlic really isn't readily available in Alberta. So we have a few different tricks up our sleeves. This year, we're trying a spring plant, which so far has gone well. We still haven't harvested it. It's still in the field. And the idea is if we don't harvest that until late September or October, it's technically 2 months behind our other crop, or a month and a half, we'll say. So we should be able to get that much longer storage on the other end. So maybe we'll have garlic, into May. Right. And it's just a very, very small window. And then, kind of build from that point.
Okay, so there's a lot of, sounds like sort of testing a little bit.
It's unknown. We've always grown on our farm, something one way or another, but garlic is still something that we're learning.
Yeah, well, it looks like you might be doing okay.
This year at least.
Yes, as I mentioned, it smells amazing. And so you've got different varieties of garlic.
We do.
And so 2 or 3 or?
This year we have 3.
Okay.
Again, that was a process we started last year. I believe we had 7. Okay. And it was sort of a trial to see what grew best in our soils, what produced well, which one produced the most uniform bulbs. And there's little things like that we look at. And for the most part, we've decided that we really like Red Russian, which is a very common one. When people hear of Alberta garlic, they think of that. And it's this beautiful purple bulb with really strong flavor.
Yes.
The one behind us here on the top level, this is called Music, and it's probably our biggest variety, and it's really nice for roasting. Okay. And so one of our products that we make, it's called the Garlic Supreme. It's a smoked garlic paste, and we get that from roasting bulbs on our big wood-fired barbecue. Oh, so this is where my passion for food and farming and everything all kind of comes together. But that was the point, was that these big bulbs are just so wonderful to make that product from.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Our third variety down here is, it's called Tibetan. And so it's a really cold, hardy crop. It does really well in our winters, and it still produces quite large bulbs. And it has more cloves, but smaller. So it's a really nice culinary garlic.
Okay. So probably more that, if I was just buying garlic, I might relate that more to what my garlic experience would be, other than the other sounds amazingly delicious. So it's like, okay, we got to expand our garlic palette here a little bit.
There you go.
And so tell me about black garlic.
Black garlic is something we started making a couple years ago. So it actually starts off fresh garlic. We use our Tibetan for it mostly. And it's a cooking process that essentially ferments the garlic, and the sugars in the bulbs naturally caramelize, and that's what turns the cloves black.
Okay.
So it changes the flavor palette very much so, and it's very sweet. So it's more sweet with a hint of garlic versus a very strong garlic flavor.
Oh, nice.
And it also has twice the antioxidants in it. It's very good for your heart if you are somebody who likes to eat garlic. And it tastes kind of like molasses or a balsamic flavor.
Oh.
So it's very unique. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as I thought it would be, but it's very good in a lot of different dishes or with meats, or kind of the sky's the limit with it. It's
sounds
really good.
Sounds delicious. And so, where do you sell your product? How do you, promote to consumers, and how does that process work?
So it's still a work in progress. This is my side of the business, is the marketing and the business side. So up until this point, we've done mostly online sales. I have an online store, or direct to consumer in one way or another.
Right.
The plan is to be able to do markets. So if everything is still going ahead this year, I'm hoping to do quite a few big events and food festivals and things like that. And actually, again, so people can put a face to who's growing their products. And I think it's just really nice to be able to get out there.
Yeah.
That was the plan for last year, and then obviously things didn't quite go
Pandemic
quite that
had
way.
other plans.
Yeah.
But yes.
But that's the hope. And then we do sell some to restaurants and local farm stores and things like that.
Yeah, excellent. Good for you.
Thank you.
Well, we are super excited, and we thank you for your time and allowing us to come in. We know it's a busy time of the year, but thank you for having the Ag for Life team, and we'll be excited to be buying your products and watching your career continue to grow.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I love sharing what we're doing here, so I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you.